to give our guest network a more imaginative name than guest.
Isn't that what they all do? Okay, I'm going to start us.
But isn't he?
Good.
Oh no, he's a Peter. Okay. All right, Bob. You gotta tell Dennis. We need a more interesting name for our guest network.
Yeah.
Well, you know. Hey, my network is called KGB Net. Apparently, one of my kids' friends actually asked her whether it's
You want this lower?
No, he has to speak too, so we'll have to. Yeah. So when you talk, you're just gonna have to take it.
that shows your ignorance in two ways. Really, the other one is they don't exist. Not under that name anyway. Not under that name, right? Oh no, I know.
But when you speak,
FSB.
just hold your
Yeah, well, yeah.
yeah,
But it's more imaginative.
and if you have to, you have to.
Now, I'll tell you what the problem with guest
I'm
is.
gonna help you.
I can't set my iPad to remember it, because then it'll start auto connecting to every guest network I go by, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
No. It knows the SSID. You don't get an IP address assignment until after you
Yeah.
connect to Wi-Fi.
Let the kids sit down first.
And you're gonna be reading. You're gonna be reading this part. You're gonna say this both together. Don't grab.
Okay.
All right.
Do we need more chairs?
We're going to bring the meeting to order. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice to or notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Hopewell Valley Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof communicated to the Hopewell Valley News and the Times on January 4th, 2024. This meeting notice was also sent to Comcast Cable and Fios and Verizon Fios. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. The meeting is being recorded for purpose of board review, future reference, preparation of the minutes, and viewing on YouTube, Bulldog TV, and the school district website at www.hvrsd.org. Members of the public who intend to participate in public comment, we ask that you sign in prior to speaking. This will assist us with the keeping of our records. We are now going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Dr. Genovese.
Here.
Mr. Kapadia.
Here.
Dr. Resnick.
Here.
Mr. Slotman. Dr. Wilson. We do have a quorum.
Awesome. Can I have a resolution to approve the minutes of the June 17th regular meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion passes. We are going to skip the report of the board president tonight since she is in absence. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Therese for report of the superintendent.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Before I get started on my quick report, we do have a lot of guests in the audience tonight, so I want to make sure we get right to our meeting. I do want to put out a few reminders. this has been a busy summer already. Our facilities folks and maintenance folks are working hard to get our buildings ready for your children's return. We have kindergarten camps gearing up. We have ESY going. So I wanted to just thank my faculty and all of my my crew for making sure they're getting us ready and also keeping us open during the course of the summer. So with that being said, I have our mission statement here to remind us of why we are all here. This is something that we developed together as a community, and it guides everything that we do. So as we do our work tonight, and we do some very important work, we keep this in mind. Referendum. Tonight, our board will be doing a vote on whether or not we can move forward on the referendum for a September special election for that, a special question where folks will be hopefully coming out to vote. So we'll be having conversations moving forward about the referendum. We remind you that you can visit our website, hvr.org/vote, to find out information, the latest information about the referendum. We'll also be posting our state aid numbers and all of those things on the website once we have finalization of all the different components. We are getting those applications back from the state. And again, we can only access that money if we go to bond through a referendum. And this is a way for tax release to the community, though we bond the whole thing. Parts that the state will pay, you don't have to pay as the taxpayer. And we can only access these funds if we go to referendum. And again, some people have asked why September 17th and not November. The quicker we can go to referendum, and should we be lucky enough to have it pass, the quicker we can go out to start projects that are pending, and some of them are crucial projects to keep our buildings running in the way that we expect them to run. I also want to just acknowledge that the Hopewell Township leadership, the committee, put out a statement that is on their website. This slide deck will be on our website. You can access through the school board, but you can also go to the Hopewell Township website and read the statement for yourself. In a nutshell, they have again recommitted to their promise to help the school district with the expansion of a Bear Tavern. However, they are acknowledging there are some roadblocks to that based on some litigation that's going on right now. So they are reluctant as a result of that to give a number. Beyond that, we continue to have ongoing conversations. Their willingness has always been there to support us in the expansion of Bear Tavern, but they have some roadblocks to this, stopping them from being able to commit at this time to an exact number. And if the pilot fails, they will not be able to commit to any number, right? So that's what they're kind of waiting to see what's going on with that. But please, we refer you to that statement for the township for more information. We do have a board vacancy. Unfortunately, we had another board member who moved out of the community and resigned as a result. It is a short window of time that you would be serving the board. This term would run for the remainder of Ms. Liu's term, which goes into December 31st. It is an application process where you would send in a letter of interest to our board secretary, Bob Calavita, and your personal resume. And that's really the only steps that you need to take beyond being available on July 31st in the evening for an interview with the board. So this is a great opportunity if you're someone who's always been interested in being on a school board, and you're not sure if it's something that you want to commit to. This is a short way to try it out. It is a large commitment. Our board members do have a lot of requirements of them in reading and keeping up with how schools work, and reading through all our committee meeting notes and running committees and attending committees. But this is a great way for you to dip a toe in it if you've ever thought about doing it. So we really encourage you to consider joining us for that. Here's the qualifications for that. You have to be 18 years old or older. You have to be able to read and write. You have to be a resident of Hopewell Township Municipality for at least a year prior to preceding the time of your appointment. Not directly or indirectly involved in a contract with the district or in a lawsuit with the district. And then there's other qualifications that are disqualifying that you can go to these sites to see. But if you are qualified, again, you can go to the next slide, Bob.
I just wanted to make one comment
sure.
that we pointed it out there, but I've gotten several questions as to who's eligible. You must be a resident of Hopewell Township.
Yes.
It can't be Pennington Borough or Hopewell Borough.
For this seat.
Just for this one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then the deadline, again, is the 22nd. If you're interested, you can email Mr. Calavita your resume and your letter of interest. Okay. And then finally, without further ado, because we have a lot of distinguished guests in the audience, we do have our presenters tonight that are here to talk about our Sustainability Green Plan. But before we do that, we want to celebrate some excellence. So we have representatives, some of the representatives from our school district who participated in the Special Olympics at TCNJ here a few months ago, a month ago. Seems like it's been longer. It's been just a month ago. And then we also have our 2 Boy Scouts back to talk about their merit badge, give us an update on how that went.
We're going to turn it over to George Needham, our special education supervisor, to take us through the Special Olympics discussion. Oh, there's something. Okay.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight I am honored to share with you a truly remarkable group of students from our district. These 9 extraordinary young athletes have recently competed in the New Jersey Special Olympics in various sports, including basketball, track and field, swimming, and bocce. The Special Olympics is more than just an event. It's a celebration of the human spirit. It shows what can be achieved when determination meets opportunity. These athletes embody resilience, courage, and unwavering self-belief. Their stories are about overcoming obstacles, pushing boundaries, and inspiring others. They remind us that true victory lies in effort, passion, and the love for the game. To our athletes, you have made us incredibly proud. Your dedication, enthusiasm, and positive attitude are shining examples for all of us. You have not only excelled in your respective sports, but have also taught us an invaluable lesson about the importance of inclusivity, perseverance, and the joy of competition. You reflect everything an athlete should be and more. At this time, I would like to recognize our athletes. Please feel free to come up with me, stand, wave, or however you are comfortable with being called out. First up, we have Charlie Mott. We have Dana Kane. We have Samarth Ralph, who's not here. We have Kira Fallon. Kira, why don't you come up again? Next, we have Revi Wetzel, who is not here. Juntae Huang, who is also not present. Lee Burrows, Frank Chen, and Nathaniel Cosmo. One more time, round of applause for those who are here. Great job.
Rosetta, you want to get a picture? Do you want to get a picture?
We can do it. I think Charlie's gonna have to go next. We can do.
Okay.
We can do
Okay.
Once that's done. We can do that.
Good
That'd be
idea.
great.
No, we'll do Charlie first.
We'll let these guys do their best.
All right, so while our student athlete is getting ready for his next presentation, if we can have our student athletes hang just for a little while, I'd like to get a picture with you all. Then we're going to invite our 2 Boy Scouts to the stage. So just to give everyone a little background, Charlie and Harrison came to us to a previous board meeting as a project for their Boy Scout merit badge for communication, expressing themselves to the board. So they're coming back to give us an update on how everything went with their merit badge and how the experience went for them.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Charlie, and this is my friend and fellow scout Harrison. We are here to share about our communications merit badge that we both earned after attending a board meeting in April.
There were many requirements to fulfill to acquire this merit badges. Going to a board meeting to report on several points and view on one issue. Charlie and I chose to report on the referendum because there were many points of view to choose from on this issue.
hold on, I can't get the word out. We focused on these point of view. Priorities, keeping all programs, curriculum, transportation bids, special education, out of district tuition, programs in district follow New Jersey code with numbers on Paris to teacher ratio, take care of special education students by law. Mrs. DiNardo does the best job with us. Staffing, teacher shortage, staff almost always stays, and all other points that were made.
We both met all the requirements, and we have our communication merit badge. This badge allowed Charlie to jump up to first class. We both just worked on more over at No We Both Go Camp all last week too.
Thank you everyone for welcoming us.
Fantastic. Thank you both for that. Do we want to do the picture now? Yes. Yeah. Any comments?
No, I'm just very grateful, and it takes a lot of courage to come up and speak in front of a room of everyone. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I really respect and commend you both, and congratulations on getting that badge. That's incredible.
Yeah. And I'd also like to congratulate the athletes that we have here too. Fantastic job of representing Hopewell Valley. So we really appreciate the efforts of all of the athletes and their parents and their caregivers and the teachers. So thank you.
And our coaches are here too, so we're so proud of all of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break and just take some quick pictures, and then we'll get back to our meeting.
No cookies?
Why,
Sorry.
why do you think I joined the board? For the free cookies? So, you graduated, right? Are you working or? Which is where? Okay. All right. Okay. No, not him, but I didn't know maybe he's off to grad school. Applicable to almost anything nowadays. Well, yeah, really. That's
Really plugs
So I didn't get to do this in the finance committee this time. We were late, but it is the data of the DOE data, and I took advantage of Google Gemini. I discovered so there's a lot of interesting process data together. It from that exact format to this exact format. It's great. Prompted, just slow. Oh, and that is so annoying. At least to me, that is the most annoying part of it. Right. Loading stuff from files, it's great. Then I had to the districts have all different schools. So there was a fairly simple piece of logic that I applied that said, if a school offers these grades, at least these grades, none of these grades, we'll call it elementary, but override, and then there's a bunch of others, right? So I prompted it to do that. It couldn't do it. It's just a bunch of specifications. Couldn't do it. Could not do it. Tried to do it and wanted to do elegant lines. Couldn't do it. So it was a fun exercise to understand what the limitations are.
Yeah, that is.
It's good because you can do the stuff I don't want to do. But you can't do the stuff I like doing. So.
Okay, we're going to get the meeting started up again. So next we have a presentation by the Climate Action Committee. I believe is Scott. Yes. So Scott Bertel and Carolyn McGrath are going to give the presentation. Oh, and
Yes.
oh.
Yes.
Okay, we can just start. Okay, hello, I'm Catherine Zaglarski.
And I'm Ben Flora.
And we are two of the leaders of the HVCHS Youth Environmental Society, or the former youth leaders, who participated in the Climate Action Committee. Thank you, Dr. Treese, administrators, and members of the Board of Education for having us here tonight. Can you hear us? Yeah, can you get a little closer? We could. Hello, 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 hello. Better? Okay.
In the spring of 2022, students in the HVCHS Youth Environmental Society, also known as the YES Club, developed and presented a climate action proposal to the Board of Education. This proposal made a case for why schools must take a bold and necessary climate action to avoid the worst impacts of a rapidly warming world. Their 28-page report provided a thorough and well-researched list of recommendations. They also asked that the board form a committee to realize the pathways to achieve.
And then in June of 2022, the Board of Education passed a resolution for the climate action and committed to a multi-year process of creating and implementing an HVRSD climate action plan.
So what is a climate action plan? The climate action plan is a detailed and strategic framework for measuring, planning, and reducing greenhouse gas and related climate.
So, the first steps that we took, let me do this. The first steps that we took to learn more were to learn more about other schools' climate action plans. And we also met with climate action consultants as well. We then formed a climate action committee made up of students from the Youth Environmental Society, Green Team teacher leaders, HVA representation, and parents. Our kickoff meeting was held January 2023. The committee is run by two co-chairs, Dr. Bertel and myself. as well as the Climate Action Core Team. We're not going to read all of the names, but you can just have a quick look. Working groups broke down the task of creating a roadmap to achieve our climate action goals. These were the members of the Education Subcommittee, as well as the Transportation Subcommittee. Next, these were the members of the Food and Waste Subcommittee and the Resilience Subcommittee. These were the members of the Facilities Subcommittee. And finally, these were some of the many consultants that we met with to help us along the way on our process.
So this evening, we are going to be presenting the 5 areas that were identified in the original Student Climate Action Proposal, along with the steps for action. For facilities, we will be joined by our consultants who worked with us on stormwater and the greenhouse gas inventory. And at the end, we will also come back to make several overarching recommendations which we believe will help us achieve our climate action goals. Finally, our presentation today includes only highlights of the work that we have done. The roadmaps for action are contained in the subcommittee reports, and which will be shared with you separately. Take it away, education.
So our first focus area is education, and our goal is to implement comprehensive climate change and environmental education.
So the first one is to provide annual professional development opportunities for teachers across content areas to support the integration of the New Jersey climate education standards.
We also want to review and revise curricula to ensure alignment with climate standards, centering equity, climate justice, and trauma-informed practices.
And we want to ensure that every student develops a thorough understanding of climate science, while also providing opportunities for advanced study.
And we also want to support Green Week experiences in all schools.
And then continuing, we want to engage HVCHS students in green volunteering opportunities.
We need to connect students to post-secondary technical education training opportunities in conservation, sustainability, and climate careers.
And then we want to establish new and support existing school gardens.
And lastly, we want to establish new and support existing outdoor learning spaces.
And then during this past year, the Education Subcommittee worked with Dr. Politzis to establish a cross-curricular group of teachers who are trained in climate change education. These teachers collaborated with the Yes Club leaders to present professional development on climate change to teachers.
This subcommittee also generated and distributed climate education resources to teachers via a curriculum instruction.
Included climate education resources in curriculum training.
We worked with CHS science teachers to develop a climate unit for all 9th grade students.
And worked with Yes Club leaders to create a Climate Corps website and with volunteer and job opportunities.
Green Team teacher leaders worked with students and principals to continue to offer a wealth of Green Week opportunities for students, including this year's first Youth Climate Summit hosted at the Watershed Institute, and a visit by First Lady Tammy Murphy to Hopewell Elementary.
And then Hopewell Schools continued to provide outdoor learning experiences and gardens with an improvement and expansion of the garden courtyard at the high school, courtesy of the Garden Club and an HVEF grant.
Thank you, Ben and Catherine. The next area of focus is transportation. Our goal is to limit carbon emissions and pollution caused by the district transportation. Here's a summary of the recommended actions. Transitioning to zero-emission school buses, incentivize carpooling as well as bus riding, promoting biking and walking to school, transition our district maintenance vehicles and equipment to, again, zero-emission models, enforce anti-idling laws on our school grounds, improve our traffic flow, which we know, especially anybody who's been at the high school parking lot. Sorry, Miss Riley. And certainly install electric vehicle charging stations. There has been a number of things we have already done, but during this past year, the transportation subcommittee has met with representatives from the Sierra Club to learn about pathways to electric school buses, have attended the ABCs of electric school buses workshop. Mr. Calavita has applied for the electric bus funding through the EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. Several of our elementary schools hosted walk, bike, and roll to school, while Hopewell Elementary expanded its bike bus. Shout out to HES. Sorry. The Yes Club conducted a traffic study at Timberlane and the high school. So now we transition to our food and waste. So I'm going to call Ben and Catherine back up, please.
Our next focus area is food and waste, and our goal is to work towards zero waste in all school operation and promote climate-friendly foods in school cafeterias.
So the first one is to eliminate sources of food waste.
We want to reduce our waste stream contamination
We want to offer more plant-based meal options.
and also offer more in-season local and organic food.
We also want to reduce and work towards eliminating plastic utensils and dishware, plastic packaging, and bottled water.
And then reduce overall school waste and switch to more sustainable products. During this past year, the Food and Waste Subcommittee coordinated with hiring an AmeriCorps service member who's a part of the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Food Waste Program. The service member performed food waste audits in school cafeterias at Hopewell Elementary School.
Yes Club leaders met with Comptonian Food Services to make recommendations for waste reduction and an increase of plant-based meals.
So the next focus area is resilience. The goal is to prepare students and schools to be resilient in an increasingly unstable world. Here's a summary of the recommended actions. When acute climate-related events occur, acknowledge the stressors that these events create for our students and community, and offer resources and support. Number 2, provide trauma-informed emotional support for students and teachers experiencing mental health distress related to climate change. And number 3, develop an updated emergency management plan that includes climate-induced extreme weather events. So, some of the things that we've already done in this past year. The Resilience Subcommittee worked with the Supervisor of Counseling to bring in Professor Kathleen Grant from TCNJ to talk to to speak with counselors about student eco-anxiety. I worked with the Climate Psychology Alliance of North America to create a guide for educators on integrating climate emotions into teaching about climate change. I also, as part of this subcommittee, worked with one of the high school counselors to create a pilot for a climate cafe discussion group. The Resilience Subcommittee also identified climate risk factors that impact school safety. And Dr. Bertel.
The next focus area is facilities. The goal is to decarbonize schools and prepare them to withstand worsening climate change impacts. Here is a summary of the recommended actions. Decarbonize our school buildings. Maximize opportunities to advance decarbonization goals during renovations, new construction, and end-of-lifespan facility replacements. Review and expand efficiency and conservation practices. And our fourth, prepare buildings and grounds to respond to climate impacts. So in a moment, you're going to hear from Dr. Tuerto as well as Mr. Lloyd, but Dr. Steve Tuerto from the Watershed Institute and Andrew Lloyd, who is a planner for Mercer County, both Hopewell Valley parents, have generously donated their time and their expertise to perform stormwater assessments of our school grounds and make high-level recommendations. We've also applied for and were awarded a grant from Sustainable Jersey and the PSE&G Foundation to work with Greener by Design to perform a district greenhouse gas inventory. So at this time, I'd like to turn things over to Dr. Tuerto and Mr. Lloyd to hear a little bit more about what they discovered.
I'm taking over the mantle now. I've got 2 kids at HES. So it's been our pleasure to do some work on stormwater for this plan within the lens of increasing resilience and optimizing use of school property. Next slide. Thank you. So in the purple there is basically what Steve and I are working on now, all these words here, right? The main thing we want to know right now is that for each campus, we're coming up with a menu of stormwater options. And the key is in red right here. For this to be successful, we've got to work. This plan has to be dynamic and ongoing coordination with the strategic plan and any work that's happening at the schools, such as if there's going to be a new parking lot or something. That's the time to really engage the menu options, and maybe even if there's one we didn't look at, we could start looking at it, because it takes a lot of work to get down to the bottom here where you get the surveyors and engineers involved to actually install projects. So we're going to use an example of Stony Brook Elementary to show you the process that we can go through for any campus. This here shows basically the drainage of the campus as if there were no buildings or anything on the property. So all these lines here are showing what rainwater, how it would collect down to this stream. This symbol here is the outfall. We'll see that in a lot of other pictures here, so remember that. That's where all the water ends up on the campus. This green, light green, is all wetlands, at least as mapped by DEP. It would have to be an LOI done on site to actually flag the specific location of the wetlands, but as you can see, it's a wet area. So the next slide shows the real world, like the true drainage when you take into account all the pipes and all these surfaces. So these lines here show how water is actually piped around the buildings, still ending up at the same point here. But the key thing that we started realizing is that this stream is very flat, and the water collecting at this site, that you'll see in a minute how big the pipe is tending to back up the stream into these wetlands. And we'll notice that that's causing one of the major issues that got us out there to begin with. Next, please. So this here is a concrete head wall that shows you about the size of that outfall pipe. So it's rather large, and part of the street drains there as well. So you get some, this is a panoramic. So way up here is the north end of the campus, and the water basically swings around and it goes down to that outfall, so catching some of the street as well. So you'll notice when we get way up here, there's some things we can do to stop it from getting into the street even. But whatever is on the campus is gathering around in this fashion. Next slide, please.
Cover, high-level hydrology, mapping of the sub-catchment areas and the larger catchment areas that they're part of. So identifying what's off of campus that's affecting the key campus, and what the campus is downstream as well. But by identifying these with respect to including all the infrastructure from the buildings and getting the true flows, we can then say how much water is where it's going, include in the assessment, what's at risk if there are any issues, and insert the mitigation strategies that might work there. This is just an example of how how they'll sort of be portrayed in a report for each campus. This is just the high level land use, land cover, which allows us to kind of delineate how much pervious cover is, impervious cover there is, which then also allows us to determine how much
non-impervious cover there is. So if you've seen stormwater reports or assessments in any kind of a development plan, when we talk about runoff traditionally, we're really calculating that based on on the actual impervious cover within a system. And that's sort of shifting now to make sure, because almost all surfaces actually produce some runoff, especially those that aren't necessarily intuitive, such as grasses. They're very intuitive for people who manage their own grasses. But it's actually quite a bit, right? So if we don't include that stuff in the budget, then we shouldn't be too surprised when mitigation strategies maybe don't work. But so this will be included in the report, along with sort of the drainage flow paths as Drew just showed. And each report will have an output that quantifies not only hit next please, not only sort of the impervious in total, but also the pervious acres, breakdown by land use, and then totals for runoff, pointing at which one is where. And in this instance, you can see the amount for the middle school is pretty high, impervious relative to the, pervious relative to the impervious. Next. So this is just showing we've done that section, we've done that part for each of the campuses, including this campus. Next. And this is just sort of a combined rundown. It's missing some of the things that would be in this table, including pollutant loading associated with each runoff amount, and a few other things. Next, we'll see that in a minute. Back over to Drew.
So, like we said before, in some cases there'll be an issue that's brought up that we have to try to solve. In other times there'll be work going on somewhere, and we try to think what you could coordinate at the same time. In Stony Brook's case, the backyard basically gets too wet to use pretty often. So next, please. We try to figure out why that was happening. As we said before, it's all wetlands, so it's not too surprising, but the roof does drain through pipes to the backyard, so there could be some inadequate or compromised piping there. The water is backing up from the stream into the wetlands, and that's really been the main focus, is how to reduce the backwater. And next slide, please. We'll show a three-step process. So up in we'll call them the highlands here, the first thing to do is to slow down how much water is actually getting down to the outfall. Then secondly, in the area in the back, there are techniques. We'll show you an example in a minute of how to stabilize and improve drainage even in a wetland. It does require more testing and possibly permitting, but it's definitely doable. And you'll see that this number 3 down here is right now, as far as we can tell, not a very used part of the campus, but it could have a very important role in acting as a sink for the water before it gets to the stream. Next, please. So back up to the highlands. These are just some rough estimates of areas that you could put things to infiltrate runoff. Every little X here is an existing inlet, believe it or not. You might not know there's inlets in fields, but all these inlets are carrying the water, as we said before, kind of down and around the campus. So if we were able to infiltrate in these areas, it would reduce the amount coming around the building. Next, please. So just a nice graphic. This is one of those inlets that you might not notice. It's right between a soccer field and the path. If you put something like this bioretentive swale there, it slows down the water. Depending on the soil testing and stuff, it might have an underdrain like that, but the outflow is at least very much slower because the plants are uptaking and the soil is uptaking. And I think if we hit it one more time, it should show you a little graphic of what it could look like. There we go. All right, next, please. All right, so the second part of the plan would be to actually deal with the backyard itself, to raise / stabilize it, improve the drainage. So next slide, please. I'll have some examples of how this might be done. So there's geogrid stabilizers you can use that grass will grow on, and it helps you to keep to basically grade an area the way you want it to be, and it'll be stable in that format, as well as improving the drainage as need be from that area. And if you go to the next slide, please, it sort of overlays it. You get the idea that, that this area could be made more usable in the back While those drains we said before from the roof, they actually work their way down right through here, and then I don't want to shoot the pointer off the screen, but over to the parking lot, and then over to the outfall. So there is an existing pattern we could make use of. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the third element, is this area that's just good for mowing, it seems like at the moment. Could be, you could think of it like it's taking the place of, instead of this area acting as the wetlands, that gets stabilized and used for foot traffic, while this area turns into the basin. And you could see that all the piping basically works its way through here already. So it's an ideal place to consider replacing a lawn with a fire retention basin. Next, please. Here's what it looks like now. Very big area. The outfall is over here, kind of off the screen. Next slide, please. Something that you could imagine, some drainage coming down from those wetlands, some excavation going on, and eventually a nice fire retention basin in that area. Next slide, please.
So again, sort of an output that helps guide all of this is this is the same same as the example from the Timber Lane, but for Stony Brook, just to show you. And this is a little bit more what the output looks like in the report, and it includes pollutant loading. Next, please. And then the sort of realized concept menu of actions that you can take looks slightly more like this, and is itemized with specifications, calculations for reductions, etc. So these are the areas where Drew was talking about installing some bioretention features. That's going to reduce quite a bit the amount of water that actually ends up in any of those drains, ends up in the pipes along the street, and contributes to that backup of that backwatering up into the backyard of the school. You sort of have, I was just telling Drew, I taught this today to a high school academy. You get two main scenarios for flooding and having these kinds of issues is when your infrastructure is just overwhelmed, and so backs up from the pipe up, like it might in your house if that was overwhelmed. The other one is when your waterways and your groundwater actually rise up so high that they're overwhelmed and you get flooded there. This is a place where luckily it's a pretty low slope, so it's not so dramatic that it's hitting the building that we know of, but both is happening. That's sort of the worst case scenario. But so that this series of sort of rain gardens and or swales, small bioretention actually do a lot of damage in terms of reductions of water, pollutant removals, and then this small one here just represents a small concept for what Drew was talking about redoing the back there. But this larger feature here is what's going to represent stabilizing, making that surface more functional. Right now it's on sort of a low, long slope into the wetlands. That could be elevated, amended with bioretention soils, stabilized with some technology that you can grow right through, and then the wetland sort of restored to be able to withhold some of the water when it does backwater. Next, please. And this is representative again of that menu, of an output that would come with that menu. This is a list of 9 features that and it's sort of a very robust sizing that's occurred at this point. So it's sort of, if you were to naturalize that entire strip, this is what you would get. So it's not exactly the same thing, but it gives you a good idea of what's going on. But these bioswales, a couple of rain gardens, the grass paver and wetland restoration for that play area, along with the sizing of those, pollutant reductions annually in pounds of each one of those, potential capacity for catching stormwater runoff per storm, so gallons per storm, and then potential for recharging stormwater based on annual average precipitations for our area. And you can see it's pretty significant Back on the slide that showed the cumulative existing conditions for the school, the annual runoff from the school was totaling 13.5 plus million gallons of stormwater annually, and you can see that just with these concept designs, we're estimating pretty darn close to that for those features being able to capture plus pollutant reductions. Next.
All right, I guess we'll wrap it up here, but just to say that basically we've been obviously took a deep dive on Stony Brook, but we're also looking at the high school and Hopewell Elementary, and we would like to keep doing this work for the district, getting those first 3 or 4 steps done, so that when you have a moment to decide on what to do, you're not just starting from scratch, so you can actually spend money on hiring engineers instead of concept designers. And we look forward to further communication so that we can coordinate efforts. Really thank you for your time.
Here we go. Thank you. Okay, so hi everyone. My name's Olivia Haller. I'm with Greener by Design. I'm one of the project managers for the company in the planning division. I studied environmental policy as a background, and I did some time in the DEP right over, right one town over. So we, as a little bit of background, Greener by Design was engaged by the Climate Action Committee in Carolyn to formulate the greenhouse gas inventory for the district. So typically, greenhouse gas inventory is a makeup of energy supply, which is from electric and heat, transportation, residential, agriculture, business, waste management, land use change, and forestry, which is hyphenated to LULUCF. So that's like the big stuff that that we do for like the U.S. That's like one of the pictures right there. You can see that it peaks in 2005, and that's where a lot of the emissions are based off of from 2005. So for Hopewell Valley specifically, we took a look at the heating data, the electrical data, and the transportation data, which only included the district-owned vehicles, which was the student transportation and a lot of the maintenance vehicles. We were not able to obtain the RIC bus company information, so just keep that in mind moving forward, because that's about half of the student transportation. So calculating the GHG inventory, I spent many loving hours looking at all the bills from Elizabethtown Gas and PSE&G, and the third-party utility with the NRG. So looking at these bills, they're pretty similar to the ones that you have for your own house or your apartment. Just looking at the kilowatt hours of the therms that power your home and heat your home, and tallying up the monthly data from price to energy used. So that's what was included in the Hopewell Valley greenhouse gas inventory. So for the building that we're in right now, the Board of Education building, and we evaluated these numbers from May 2023 to April 2024. So that was the scope of the bills. So for the building that we're in right now, the total cost of 1 year of energy, which means the heating and electricity, totals up to almost $60,000, which is, wait till you see the high school. Just kidding. I didn't bring my glasses, so I'm trying to see the number of the, I have the numbers here. Just kidding, I have the high school only. So, so moving on to the high school, it's totaling up to almost almost $500,000 to power it for 1 year, which is quite a bit. So, and then above that number, you can see that it's about 2,000 tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere just to power the high school and heat it. So the greenhouse gas itself, or those types of emissions, that's carbon dioxide, methane, and the other like air pollutants that you can feel on like the ground level, which are like the NOx and SOx, the sulfur and nitrogen. So totaling up all the numbers from May 2023 to April 2024 for the whole district, and just as a reminder of the scope of the calculations we did, that include the building we're in right now, the high school, the middle school, and the 4 elementary schools, and also including the bus yard and the random bits of lighting throughout the district. So that's called body politic lighting. So adding all those numbers up, you see that it's 7,427,424 kilowatts of electricity, which costs about a little over of $1,178,398.85 for electricity. And then for heat, it's 256,293 therms of heat, and that's about $300,000 to heat all the buildings throughout the year. So for the transportation, that was once again evaluating the district-owned vehicles, meaning the student transportation and maintenance. So that totals up to 671 tons of carbon dioxide emissions, and then that is measured in grams for methane and nitrous oxide emissions. But those are the types of emissions that those are like that relate to the anti-idling laws, because it affects the ground air quality. So this is just an overview of the total carbon emissions for the district. So you can see that it's kind of chunked into different pieces, and keeping in mind that the black one, which is the transportation, that would approximately like double with the RIC bus. So it's about a sixth or something. So in total for the whole district, in 1 year, it emits 6,453.02 metric tons of CO2e, which is the equivalent of all the other types of greenhouse gas that I just mentioned before. And just as a, what does that number actually mean? For some contextualization, that's about 1,403 cars on the road for 1 full year. So, just, a little context for you all. So moving into final recommendations. So, my boss likes to say that with this type of energy work, we're not talking about green, we're talking about green. So, this is where the energy stuff where we can really save some money for the school district by investing in the programs that already exist with the utilities, such as PC&G in Elizabethtown. So these are programs funded by the feds and the state also, and especially in the recent years with all the big bills that were passed down in Congress. These are bills that help you figure out where the money is going in terms of like the auditing of the schools, and how you can improve it. And it's they help you each step of the way. So it's a really incredible opportunity from PC&G in Elizabethtown. So this is an example of the engineered solutions. That's the program that they have for the bigger customers, which would be Hopewell Valley. So they provide free audits from certified third-party auditors. So what we did was the greenhouse gas inventory. So that's just like one snapshot of the audit itself. But that's a great landing point for them. And it was a great, great thing to do that the Climate Action Committee wanted to do. So the free audit, and then moving into the third party providing bid-ready designs, and then the utility provides free installation of the updated HVAC systems, lighting, and everything that it can save the district money. and that is in turn put on the on-bill payments interest-free. So it's the best deal you can find in this regard, and it's the energy savings and the money savings for your schools and district is remarkable. And so this is that was okay. This is just an example of it's PSNG in Elizabethtown, all the utility companies. They really want to help you, you yourself as a person with your home, and also us as like a school district, because the more people that enter into these programs, the easier it is for them, because as climate change keeps turning its wheel and making it hotter, it makes it harder to power the buildings in the summers, and also we've been seeing all the Amtrak ridiculousness with the heat. So yeah. Thank you.
All right. Hopefully your brain is not soup. 'Cause that was a lot of information. Next one. So the presentations that you've heard today are just actually a small window of the many hundreds of hours that our committee has collectively spent researching, planning, meeting, documenting pathways for climate action. We are very lucky to work in a school district with teachers, students, administrators, families that values sustainability, eco-justice, and climate action. And we could not do what we've done without you. And I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Bertel to take it home.
Thank you again. Again, at this time, if we did not, if it wasn't for the effort of the committee, and if it wasn't for effort and the support of the board, we wouldn't have been able to go out and find the funding to run that, to basically run those baseline inventories that we've been able to do to provide that data to the board, so you can make informed decisions moving forward. So again, this is the work for all who are involved. We have several recommendations to support this type of work moving forward. So again, our final recommendation as a committee itself is just to continue to support climate action, support climate justice and sustainability efforts here at Hopewell Valley Regional School District. And these are our last recommendations. Certainly to create a climate action coordinator position, provide ongoing training in climate action leadership for our Board of Education members as well as our administration. Include expertise in climate action, climate justice, and sustainability as a hiring lens for new staff in key positions. Provide stipends, if possible, for staff members who take on leadership roles in the Climate Action Committee. Support participation in local, regional, and national school climate action and sustainability programs, which you just saw the benefit of one right there, providing that report, funding the grant for that. And lastly, publicizing district climate action, climate justice, and sustainability efforts widely. So at this time, we'd certainly like to thank, again, Dr. Treese, the members of the Board of Education, for your support with the work that this committee has done. I know it was a long presentation, but hopefully it was a thorough presentation, and it was information that will help you guide our district moving forward. So thank you.
Fantastic. That was really a very detailed presentation. Are there any questions from the board? Mike.
I have a question. One of my interests is democracy, as people are aware. But I noticed that there's not a whole lot in this plan to empower students to get involved in the policy making, the legislation support, the public sort of the way that public understands and can use this stuff. Is that a possibility?
Yes. So, just to clarify, even though this was very detailed, we also have subcommittee reports that take each of these actions and breaks it down and elaborates, like, how is this actually going to be accomplished? And going back to the very beginning, under education, that exactly what you're asking for is the recommendation.
So I could see a report that shows me how students are being empowered to make this thing work and make it happen.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to see that if it's possible.
We would love to share it with you. It's not, I can't deliver it to you right now, but it's coming.
Oh, well.
Alex?
I have a long list, so I'm inclined to let you wants to. All right, well, I'll go. So, yes, my brain is soup, but it's always soup, so I'm going to start slurping. So first of all, thank you, everyone, for all this incredible work that you've done. Folks around this table know that every other meeting or so, I was like, what's going on in our climate ad hoc committee? I'm interested in seeing some stuff. This is an incredible amount of work. I want to thank all the volunteers who volunteered to do this. Yeah, so, and it's really, really good work. My first kind of top level question is those subcommittee reports, when are they going to be available and where is more important? Yeah, just say after.
So the subcommittee reports most are finished. Some are about this close to being finished. But we sort of need to run them through a few folks, administrators,
okay,
before those get passed
and
on.
where are they going to be available? Are we going to have a site
There's a folder that we'll be able to share with you.
for the board, but not for the public?
For the board.
Got it. So we're going to take a look at it. And then,
Exactly.
okay. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the idea with those subcommittee reports is for the board to really decide, is this step something you want to get behind or not?
Oh, it's like I paid you because you're leading into my next question. So here's this is a big comment / a set of questions, and no, really more asked. So before I even get into it, the second thing, and you know this, I asked, are there going to be students presenting? So thank you for having students presenting, because to me, the educational aspect of this is as important as everything else. I want to make sure that at least the students that care to participate, and then hopefully maybe a bigger subset of students, kind of go out into the world educated. Now, having said all that, there was one thing that kind of, there's one part of the climate challenge that I think Greener by Design addressed a little bit, right? But I haven't seen come through the other presentations, so I don't know if it was discussed, right? And that is the real difficulty that is encountered with doing some of the things that we need to do to address climate change, right? And I'm just going to be very blunt and use the district as the relevant example, although I could use my own home and things I try to do at home, right? It's a trade-off. There's a fixed budget, right? In our district, the big trade-off for us, let's be honest, we have a fixed budget. We're capped, even if we wanted to raise even more taxes, which we don't, right? But even if we wanted to, the state doesn't allow us. And we only have two large sources two large pools of discretionary money, right? Facilities, which is a lot, right, and regular instruction. Those are the only two large pools that we have any control over, as I learned in the 2.5 years, right? So everything always becomes if there's money involved, it becomes a trade-off. Do we want to do this? Yes, but do we want to do this at the expense of that? And I am hoping to get a lot of, I know you're saying that's my job. I am hoping that you guys are going to help us do that, right? And so what I'm looking for going forward is, looking at all the recommendations and saying, here are some things that can be done at a minimal cost, at no cost, right? Arena by Design mentions some things that can be done where it saves us money, and having put a solar up on my roof, I know that you can do it. I also know how really difficult it is to do that. I had to actually do some financial engineering in order to make it work with loans and stuff, right? So, kind of looking at that and engaging the students in understanding that those trade-offs, because I think from an educational point of view, if they're not exposed to how difficult it is and why it's difficult, right? If we try to take on something really, really ambitious that costs a lot of money, and I'm not proposing that we do, but it's going to come at the expense of what? It's going to come at the expense of elective or advanced course offerings at the high school, or class sizes, or something else, right? So that kind of a conversation, I saw some bits and pieces of it. I know there's a lot of work that you guys
Can I
need to do, but
just
I'd like
address that?
to focus. Yes.
So I wish I had an example of subcommittee report that I could give you at the moment, but I do not. But in the subcommittee report, for example, support participation in local, regional, national school climate action and sustainability programs. For every single one of the actions we proposed, we looked at cost, we looked at funding opportunities, we looked at savings opportunities. So none of the actions that we've recommended have those issues not been considered.
Okay. So
And-
I mean, those
and-
are the kinds of things that I'll be looking for. Yeah.
And I will just kind of put it back on the kids. I don't want to put you on the spot. But they were involved in like some nitty gritty conversations.
Yeah, because these are the
personally-
things I really want to hear,
Yeah.
right?
So I was involved in like the transportation subcommittee, and I really liked it because it was with like I think Bob Calavita is in charge of transportation. Is that you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Right there.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. It was on Zoom. My bad. But I really liked it because I was just hearing about the whole process of like electric vehicles and like our transportation and how we get our school busing and like picking out the routes and all the difficulties with transforming to electric vehicles and issues that I didn't think about. And I really liked it because I was just like learning about all the policy stuff. So it was really educational, and I just am interested in that.
Good. I'm really glad to hear that, because that to me is a very important part of what was going on.
Yeah, I think if I got anything out of these subcommittees, it was learning a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and a lot of the challenges that you guys face that I didn't think about. But yeah, I really enjoyed that, and it kind of shaped more my understanding of like what we could suggest and like what we could do moving forward. But in all of the subcommittees, there were students on every one of them. It was usually me, Ben, and some other people in the Yes Club. But we're all like, we also went to DC. We're all like very interested in the policy aspect and administration, alongside with like how we can use that to support our environmental. Like,
So super happy to hear that. On that note, I'll pick up on one more point. Climate action coordinator. I would actually like to challenge the climate club and the committee which may be standing to be the climate action coordinator for two reasons. One is I'd like to save money, but two, I feel like when you create positions like that, you create a sense in the community that, hey, we now have that person, we're going to take this work, hand it over to that person, and then we just yell at that person when something gets done, right? Whereas in this particular topic, well, not only this one, but on this one, I'd like to see continued community engagement. We have the climate PTO now, right? And so somehow within that ecosystem, I'd like to see the role of helping us coordinate what we can do, when we do it, how it makes sense to do it, stay there. And also that gives an ability for the next, because you guys are you graduating?
yeah, we just graduated.
Right, so there's the next. Right, so there's the next.
Hey, look at that! We have us a wave!
Students coming in, and they're going to need to learn all the things that they've learned, right? And what better way to do it than to actually guide us in coordinating this. And one last comment. The stormwater management, the two parents did, holy cow, thank you. And where do you get those maps? The ones without the building? Is that like publicly available maps? That you have access to. Thank you. Okay, now I'm done.
I just want to reiterate a lot of the gratitude that the board feels for all of the work, the parents, the consultants, especially the students for spending a lot of time, working to make our school district more sustainable and green. I had a couple questions. The first one was more towards Bob and Dr. Treese. So as we're moving towards more construction and renovations with the referendum that's on the horizon, are we being strategic in implementing some of the recommendations that we've seen in this presentation in the new building that we're going to inevitably embark upon?
In a lot of ways, all the HVAC stuff is incorporates a lot of that activity with the energy recovery units built into these to help reduce the amount of electricity we need to heat and cool the buildings, and the lighting that we've done in the past. But this particular, Tom, is there anything else in those areas?
Well, in particular, and the reason why I asked the consultants to talk specifically about Stony Brook, that is something that's a project that we're looking at for the referendum, right? So there's an opportunity there. But as we look at all of these projects, now is the time, when cost allows, right? And there's could be some opportunities through grants and some of the other things through Sustainable New Jersey and other outlets. But now's the time to do it. We're looking at Stony Brook's flooding issue at the back of the school. So now's the time to do that. That's why I asked.
That piece is definitely in it. There's a drainage product at Stony Brook that's going to address flooding at that particular school, not to the extent that they're looking at. We do have alternate bids that will go out for greener pieces to those puzzles, higher efficiency equipment. And when those bids come in, if they fit, then you can go in that direction. If it's over budget, you can't. And that's kind of what Alex was talking about. It's hard to say you definitely want to do this when you have a limited amount of funds. But we all of our HVAC stuff that we've done on our own for the last 15 to 20 years has incorporated a greener design as far as HVAC equipment goes. Higher efficiency equipment.
So just to jump in, there's historic incentives that currently exist through the Inflation Reduction Act, specifically for schools. And that's part of what we hope to turn over to you, that is in support of greener HVAC, etc. So continue this conversation. Our goal is not to spend the district's money. Our goal is to save the district money while also moving us forward.
Thank you. I had a quick follow-up question for members of the Climate Action Committee. This is just for my own knowledge. Are there a lot of peer districts that are really moving forward on this work, or are we kind of the flag bearers in this? Because I'm just interested in where we're at.
That is an awesome question. So we are not the only district who's moving forward on this. Some of the districts are considerably bigger than we are. Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia, they've been doing this stuff for years. But they have 220 schools.
Wow.
So apples and oranges, right? And they have a whole department that's devoted to energy management. And I met with someone who does their greenhouse gas inventory annually. So, we met with folks from other schools who are doing this, and then trying to figure out, okay, how does this make sense for us? Because we're not Salt Lake City Public Schools. They did a climate action plan. We're not Denver Public Schools. They, again, whole department that is completely focused on this. Or there's schools, there's Prince George's County in Maryland, their public schools were working on this at the same time that we've been working on it. So yes, it's happening. I was at a conference today and I'm hearing folks saying, oh, this is something our district is starting to do. It's happening, but we're sort of on the cutting edge.
So what about in New Jersey? Because I know that, like you mentioned, Fairfax County, 220 schools right outside of the state of New Jersey. There are some districts that are like a municipal government in itself, right? In New Jersey, because New Jersey districts tend to be, with the exception of a few cities, kind of.
So in New Jersey,
how will we compare to other? Are we ahead of others?
We're ahead of other schools in New Jersey. As far as we know, we are the only public school that is working to create a climate action plan, unless there's one that I just don't know of. There are private schools, however, that have done this previously.
We're so far ahead of the curve that Carolyn and Scott presented at the school board's conference this year on creating a climate action plan. So,
thanks, Bob.
I mean, when you're talking about people who are above the curve, we are, and New Jersey recognized that and had them share how they got their plan started. So,
do they want to give us any money?
We did get some money.
In reference to all these schools that are, or districts or whatever, that are also in the same area that we're working on, is there any, and I'm getting back to the politics and the democracy, power is developed by engaging in community with others. Are you working on that? In other words, are the issues and the politics and that sort of thing, are you combining with other schools across either New Jersey or across the country?
So during our Green Week, we hosted a youth climate summit at the watershed, and that's when we got students from all across central New Jersey, and they all came to the watershed, and we had discussions. We talked about what they were doing at their school district. In Montgomery, there were students working on a climate action themselves. There were
people from Princeton. Some of our recommendations, on mandating volunteer hours, and that is something that Princeton High School has done, and we've taken their benefits and we're trying to improve our school.
But I'm talking about creating the power to make changes in legislation, in policy, in thinking, and that sort of thing.
So in our junior year, so last year in March, we worked with a school in California, Sonoma Academy, and we went with Schools for Climate Action, and we lobbied in DC for 2
But are you creating the communities that will sustain this? In other words, you don't just have one activity or one lobbying session, but you create the kinds of interactions and linkage that allow the politics of the power to grow.
Because we are a spearheader for this big process, we are hoping in the future to work with
So
others.
that's planned.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, I think you had one more question, and I see John also has been trying. We're going to do 2 last questions because I don't know about everybody else, but 11 o'clock will be here before we know it. So
I just had a quick point to add. In terms of the first recommendation about instituting some type of being aware in our curriculum and our educational resources. One thing I just want to throw out to the Eco PTO and to members of the Climate Action Committee. I've had some conversations recently with a lot of farmers in Hopewell and Mercer County, and they're incredibly interested in coming to not only our school but schools in the area to talk about sustainable farming and sustainable agricultural techniques. And I think being in Hopewell with so much open space and preservation and farms, we really have access to a unique resource. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case it hadn't been considered. I'm sure it has, but I'm very passionate about this in particular, and I hope that can be something that gets implemented in the recommendations.
Yeah, in our education subcommittee reports, we have gardening, learning, and other farming.
Yeah, working with local groups and like educating about like outdoor learning opportunities.
And even getting like local food sources into our cafeterias.
John.
Yeah, I'll just say, just first of all, echo all the comments and the terrific work. And going to D.C., I lived there for 14 years, so I appreciate how difficult that can be, and going to meet with members of Congress and that sort of thing. It certainly appreciate the courage that you all showed to go down there and all the work that you all been doing. So I appreciate that. I guess I'll push back a little bit. I know we're talking a lot about things that cost money. There are 95% of these things are just a mindset change, right? I mean, there's one in here on idling. That is like if we can figure out a way just to get folks to stop idling when they're picking up their kids at the middle school or whatever. I mean, I can't even imagine how much we'd be saving, or encouraging kids to get on the bus in the morning. My kid takes the bus in the morning and there's nobody on the bus. So if we could just figure out ways to, it's just a mindset change, right? So I appreciate that there's so much in here that's just easy for us to do. We just kind of change how we're doing things. So
Going off your transportation comment, in the middle of winter, we actually conducted a transportation audit. So at 7 in the morning, we stood out in very cold morning, and we just counted how many cars were going into the middle school parking lot, how many were going into the high school parking lot, and we saw it just started getting more and more backed up as it started getting closer to 7:30. There were all these buses that were driving by, and we could see that there were very little students on them, and it was just more and more cars. And so as we got closer to 7:45, the Timberlane Drive gets really backed up, turning into the solar lot or turning into the Timberlane parking lot, and it just causes a bunch of congestion. So we recommend that traffic flow is changed, or that we have different release times for students who are driving or walking or biking, so that it can decrease congestion.
Fantastic. Thank you all. This was, as you can tell by the time and the dedication to it, is a very important issue. And so the board greatly appreciates everything that you have all done to do these reports and move us in a way that is more sustainable as an entire district. So thank you. We appreciate it. So we are going to enter into our first public comment. This public comment is open for any items of interest. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes. During this portion of the meeting, you are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so the matter is researched by the district administration. Members of the public who intend to participate in public comment We ask that you sign in prior to speaking. This will assist us in our record keeping. Alex is our lovely timekeeper. He will show.
Seconds left. You're done.
There you go. Public comment is now open.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julie Cesare. I am a Bear Tavern elementary parent and one of the co-founders of the Eco PTO. And I'm so excited by everything I heard and saw here tonight. And in that spirit, and the spirit of coming together as a community of parents and teachers, community members without any children in the game, the Eco PTO would like to move forward with creating a organizational body to be a liaisons between all of the schools. The idea is to have 2 parents and 1 teacher per school to act as representatives and help to facilitate conversation and activity. And so my question here really is that as a new organization without any experience doing this, I'm asking if that setup sounds like something that might work well to help support all of these various missions that the school district has. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gabe Dominguez. I'm a father of 2 kids at Hopewell Elementary School and also a co-founder of Eco PTO. I just wanted to give major props to everyone who's been laboring, particularly Carolyn, and the kids and Dr. Bertel and just these superstars that I've come to know recently who have been working as volunteers, so many volunteer hours. I know Carolyn's been sort of a legend that my own dad was telling me about. When you move to New Jersey, you gotta look up this woman. She's sort of a celeb. I was coming from the Salt Lake City school district and worked with the high school students in that district who were working on their own climate action plan. A lot of those kids were involved with Fridays for Future, and I worked closely with them as a volunteer and mentor. But I wanted to address Alex Resnick. Your comment about, you said, I want to challenge the Eco PTO, I want to challenge the students to volunteer to do these kinds of things. And I think it's powerful. Obviously, grassroots power is amazing. So many of our victories as a country have been powered by grassroots people who are passionate, who are giving their blood, sweat, and tears. But I also think it's important to remember that the football team, the things that we value, that we want people to show up to en masse and cheer for and adopt the spirit that would make them stop idling their cars. These are paid positions, and there's not just one. There's many sports people who are being paid, right? So to me, I think that sustainability is a community sport. It is something that is played on the field of the entire town. the field of the entire county, of the entire district, and to get people to play, not just students, but parents and teachers and everybody to join in that spirit. We have to have events, we have to have action, we have to have charisma as a group, and coordinate it, and have people who are paid, who are passionate about this, who have experience. I'm not particularly volunteering myself, but I will submit my resume if these positions are created. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Susan Flora. I haven't been on this side of the podium in quite a while, or that side. I was invited by my son Ben to come watch. Hey Mom, we're presenting this climate action plan. I just wanted to really recognize Ms. McGrath, Dr. Bertella, all of the students, all of the staff, all of the community. When Alex, when you were asking about student involvement, I cannot even tell you that since sophomore year, Ben got involved in this, and it has really changed the trajectory, I think, of his education, of his community involvement, of his confidence in interacting with everyone in this community, and to really actually make an impact. And the countless hours that Ms. McGrath has spent with these students, this is not something that I never got the impression that this was something top down, that these kids were being told to do this. There were so many students involved across so many grades, and it truly changed how our family talks about climate, how our family, like, it has really made an impact in a small way, but also in this larger community, and then also on my students. So it's been a tremendous effort, and I just wanted to thank all of you who've been involved in this. And really recognize that. So thank you.
Okay. Seeing no more public comment, we're going to close public comment. And I am going to turn it over to Dr. Treese to address.
Yes, I want to thank you all for your comments, and know that we are still, the district will continue to be committed to partnering with parents, specifically to the eco-PTO parents. And I was hanging out with them today on a farm, cooking and picking things. I was myself cooking in the sun, but I got to pick a lot of fruits and vegetables and taste them and learn about sustainability farming. We also talked about opportunities for our teachers to receive professional development, for our students to experience it. And maybe even some paid positions. So that's exciting for some of our students. But I think the best way to approach this for the eco-PTO, as I'm thinking about it, is to really sit down with our principals. And I was talking to Dr. Patel about this just this evening, and determine how we can form that partnership on something sustainable. Because what we don't want to happen is we continue to put things in and they're not being maintained, because Tom Quinn and his facilities guys, if we put a rain garden in and they don't know how to maintain it, and they think they're cutting down weeds, right, and those sorts of things, we need to make sure that we're all working together in that, and that's a huge way that parents can help, is to support those things once we put them in, to help us coordinate parent groups and students to come do some of that community service we're talking about, and then also connect us to those resources outside, some of those farmers, some of those folks that are working in our community, where we can have them come in and do work with our students, our families, and that, and really help us to promote this on a wider scale. So I'm committed to having those meetings with you all and the principals and setting that up so that we can start mapping out, once the board is able to get these plans and decide, okay, these are the things we think we're going to work on this year. We can sit down with you, which is what we do with a lot of our parent groups, and you can kind of help us in how you can support us in that. That would be wonderful.
Yes, you may.
Okay. Thank you. Since I was there.
Only
So
if
two
they're
quick responses. One is on the coordinator. I think point taken. The bigger point I was trying to make with that position is I want to make sure if we do create it, and I'll listen to recommendations from the administration. I'm sure they'll take a look at this. But if we do create it, we don't create a situation where we've now nominated somebody and we hand everything over, and what has been built and the educational value that provides and the other value that the community builds. That's my top question about that position. And the other one on the organization, on the liaison thing, as a board member, I mean, I'm positive about it, but I'll be looking for a mission statement. This is why it exists. This is what it's going to do, and be able to evaluate it on the specifics of that, right? So, yeah.
Fantastic. That is beautiful. Okay. I think I need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Yeah.
Yes. A motion to accept the consent agenda marked with asterisk.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Consent agenda is accepted. We're going to move on to our committee reports with finance and facilities.
There we go. My apologies. I had to find my. So we had we met last week in the finance and facilities committees. We got a heads up and a preview of the climate presentation, but we can skip that because we've seen a lot more of that here. On the agenda for the finance and facilities committee, or for the board from the committee, 2 items of note. Of course, we will be voting to actually on the actual referendum proposal, final numbers and everything. That's going to be a roll call as soon as I'm done. And the other item that is on the consent agenda, I believe, is a recommendation to hire a construction manager if the referendum passes. This is something that state requires. The state requires to have an independent manager for any project that exceeds $10 million, and we have a couple of them on the referendum. So that's somebody that we're going to have to hire if the referendum passes. And I believe Bob is already beginning to look at candidates just in case the referendum does pass, so we can start pulling the trigger on that. Lots of stuff going on the facility side. The work in Timberlane sewage is progressing well, and we are on pace to be done ahead of the school year start. There's a minor budget overrun due to an unforeseen issue, but overall positive news. Stony Brook fire alarm work is going well. There's some steps and concrete work that's going on at Stony Brook at Fair Tavern, and it's one of those things where we need to apply quick fix now. A comprehensive solution is on the referendum. Again, if the referendum passes, that's an area that we're going to address. But in the meantime, there's a fix that's going to last for.
Yeah, I don't. Tom can nod if I'm wrong, but this fix is not going to be destroyed by the referendum. This was something that we had to do, but it's going to stay in place afterward. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is something.
So we're not throwing. We're spending money that's going to hopefully last for a number of years.
Good. Thank you for the clarification. There's a whole bunch of ACs that are being well, fixed, maintained. Some of in some cases it's air conditioning units that we know are old. And again, if the referendum passes, that's in the referendum. There's at the high school, there's a fix that needs to be applied at air conditioning. Yeah. So is PSC&G gonna pay us? They're gonna reimburse us for the repairs? Not that chance. Okay. Um, Piggybacking on the climate conversation, Tom found a way to reduce some of the uh, uh, cost of dealing with food waste in a green way. And last but not least, we're spending what I think is a ridiculous amount of money for new power meters because Pennington Borough is requiring us to put those specific meters in. And of course, when you're being told that you have to buy something, that specific thing, that specific thing costs a lot more than it should. And I think I mentioned all the big stuff on the facilities committee. And then last but not least, we discussed in the committee and also before the board a potential for a budget retreat for this upcoming budget cycle, just to kind of be able to lay everything in front of us. We were originally thinking about doing it during the summer. Bob basically explained that the data that we would really want to have available is not going to be available during the summer. So we're going to push it off until the data is available, and we are going to start with departmental budget presentations, but just for the board members, I guess, who are here, right? The context of those presentations is going to be not a proposal, but an explanation of what they want to do, right? So then we'll kind of need to look at everything comprehensively, but the administration has a chance to put everything together. That's it for me. Any questions? Ooh. Wow. Awesome.
Again, that's not the bulb. That's the fixture.
That's the
entire
yeah.
fixture. So it's.
Yeah, that's the actual picture.
So let me preface what your guys. This next item is. This is the. I had some questions that said, "Well, I thought we already did this." In the beginning, the last resolution we did was to authorize the submission of project documents to the state of New Jersey for them to analyze what we want to do and for them to approve or disapprove it. Now, when I say disapprove, it means they're not going to fund it. Okay? We got all of those back. They're called PEC letters, preliminary eligible cost letters. Through this resolution tonight, we are accepting their preliminary eligible costs. We are saying to the Board of Elections that we want placed on the ballot on September 17th our question to be given to the public. Once we do that, they'll issue what's called FECs, final eligibility costs, and then that's what we roll forward with. There is a challenge. If we chose to challenge the PEC letters, it would just elongate the process. We did get additional monies that we thought we weren't going to get. Of the $5.8 million turf field, we did get $1.5 million that they determined was eligible. We're not getting $1.5 million. We're getting they're considering $1.5 million eligible, and we get 40% of that. We also got additional monies for a parking lot. I believe it was at Central High School. Worked at Central High School. Tom, is that? Yeah, Central High School. They included more than we thought in that project, which will also be funded at 40%. The bottom line is, theoretically, we're going to get somewhere in the area of 27.38% of the projects were considered eligible. So a little bit high. We thought about a quarter. 27% is, but that's good. 27% of the projects are eligible for state share. So there's where we are tonight. We're going to vote because of what we have here tonight. We need a unanimous vote to be able to move forward. And that's where we are right now. If there's any questions from the board members, we can entertain that, but that's where we are right
Can I
now.
ask a quick question? Just based on what we saw from the township, could the number change based on if they come to an agreement, or if the suits drop based on the statement we saw from earlier today or yesterday, whatever that was?
So the simple answer is no. We're asking to bond $87.15 million. If they give us money, we can use it in several different ways. There are ways to put that in that will reduce the cost to our taxpayer through an annual payment of the debt related to that project. They could also decide to bond the money themselves and give us a lump sum, which we would do the same thing with. We would put it aside in an interest-bearing account, pull out what we needed each year to cover that portion of the debt. But once we do this is what we're going with. We can't lower the amount that we're bonding right now.
Yeah, so let me just clarify. When you say no, it's not going to change. It's not going to change what we're voting on.
Right, correct.
We have to bond the amount. Right. It'll obviously have a positive impact on the tax bills that people are going to be getting later.
Right. Remember, right off the top, while we are bonding $87 million, we would be bonding $87 million. The state has already agreed to contribute a portion of that. So, that's the way they do it. We still have to bond the full $87 million, and the state will be paying us somewhere in the area of $1 million a year to put towards that money. So, just the mechanism the state uses.
So I need a first and a second.
Motion.
And I need to do a roll call for this. Okay, Dr. Genovese.
Yes.
Mr. Kapadia.
Yes.
Dr. Resnick.
Yes.
Mr. Slotman.
Yes.
And Dr. Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we have report from personnel next.
Would be Mark Tanner.
Oh. Okay. So we're gonna do an audible. It looks like within personnel we have some personnel actions that we need a roll call vote on, and some extracurricular appointments. Within the personnel actions, I know we have our new STEM facilitators.
Yes, I wanted to point that out. Out of the appointments, we have some of the clubs and the volunteers and all of those folks on here as well, and some approvals for changes in positions. You will not see a position here that says STEM facilitator or STEAM facilitator. They are just hired as teachers. So we have we're appointing one for each one of the buildings. One of the people we're going to be recommending for appointment tonight was a former STEM facilitator. But these positions will be K-12. All students in all the schools will be exposed to a STEAM curriculum that will be integrated, that will include social studies, language arts components, as well as promoting some of the things that we talked about tonight in our recommendations. So we're very excited to bring these new positions to the district.
Again, something else on here that we probably should point out is the retirement of Janet Mills, who's been here since 1985 and a huge part of the district for well, she started before I graduated high school.
I'll just I mean, both my kids have gone through her, and just the zest for music has been amazing, and so that all came from her. So definitely, she'll be missed.
Yep, she will. Sure.
Okay. So now I need a motion for.
Second.
Dr. Resnick.
Yes.
Mr. Slotman.
Yes.
Dr. Wilson. Dr. Genovese.
Yes.
Mr. Kapadia.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Education programs.
All right, I'm gonna cover that because Vicky is not here, and we are short an education committee chair as well. So we had a couple of good fun things happen in the committee. Ms. Riley, the principal of Hopewell Valley Central High School, came and discussed a potential grading policy changes for students who are in home instruction. So this is a very rare case, from what I understand, but when they do happen, there is a significant impact, obviously, to how the student is being taught. By New Jersey statutes, the district must provide only 2 hours a week per subject to students. And right now, my understanding is we don't actually have a policy on whether they are offered a pass-fail option or whether they're graded, and it's kind of done on a case-by-case basis. Ms. Riley made a strong case that we adopt, and I guess this will have to go to the policy committee, but that adopting a pass-fail.
Procedures.
Oh, it's a procedure.
Yeah, it would be in their
I apologize. So, adopting a pass-fail procedure, I want to call it policy then, so that it makes the most sense, so that we're consistent, and it also reflects the fact that these students are not getting the same education that somebody who goes to class and attends school gets for the letter grade. So it would be a more accurate reflection of the education that the students would get.
And Alex, just to qualify, that was based on missing an entire semester or two semesters, and that's how it would be sort of an incremental.
Yes. The students who are in home instruction for more than 50% of a marking period move to a pass-fail for the marking period, and students who are on home instruction for 2+ marking periods receive a pass-fail for the full year. Mr. Turnbull, the principal of TMS, gave a really long presentation about the TMS schedule and a proposal for the upcoming year. I'll just do the highlights. There is no significant changes proposed to the schedule. The only major change is the movement of the back period from the end of the day to following lunch, and there are some very good reasons that Mr. Turnbull presented for doing that. He also presented a result of a survey that was given to 8th graders, asking their opinion about the rotating ABCD day schedule and the previous schedule, which didn't have that. And the reason it's only 8th graders is because they are the only grade that to experience both, as well as there were teachers were given the same survey. And again, I don't want to take too much time with the details, but about 3/4 of the responses were in favor of the rotating schedule. So both with teachers and with students, we have a fairly overwhelming preference for the rotating day schedule. Again, there are certain concerns, right? There's pros and cons with everything, but I think we have a strong indication that this is the right way to continue going. Mr. Umstead, the supervisor of visual and performing arts and exceptionally able, presented some exceptionally able or presented changes to the way we qualify children, or proposed changes to the way we will qualify kids for the exceptionally able program. Again, he reviewed a lot of information. The low and the short of it is we're going to place less emphasis on COGAT. We're going to move things back to the second grade, all things that I support strongly, especially the less emphasis on COGAT. So I think there was a positive response to that. And I lost it.
It's okay, Alex. I'll just add a little bit to that. One of the important things that was happening is they're identifying in second grade, but also in third, and the other tests and information that they're implementing will help it to be more equitable, because we know the COGAD has its problems around equity, especially students of color, students with disabilities are double, twice exceptional. So we're trying to make sure that we're equitable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Mr. Armstead pointed out that there will be a designated EA teacher for the elementary schools in this coming year, which is a shift from previous years. The teacher will rotate between the elementary schools, and he kind of went through the details of how that would work, and how the schedule for the EA kids would look like. And then we went ahead and we discussed the potential date on August 12th for the committee meeting, which we're going to approve on we approve the calendar. Dr. Belitzis is not here. Members are all here. This is the only committee where all the committee members.
That's the rest are going to struggle.
Yes. And that's about it. And I don't think there's any thing that's not on the consent agenda.
Thank you for that very detailed report. Next is community relations.
We had a relatively mild set of concerns. First started with the township's agreement to, or willingness to assume a lot of the cost of the building if the boroughs were willing to put away their lawsuit. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Let me just say, if the lawsuit goes away, whether because boroughs are willing to stop, or if it just makes it makes its way to the courts, and the courts decide in favor of it.
Sure.
So either way.
There was some discussion about a little misunderstanding with the movement of custodians at Bear Tavern. That was moved over without too much trouble. Apparently, everyone's friends now.
Everybody's friends.
The third issue was graduation photos, and that was one of us had concerns about how parents were being sort of threatened to have these photos taken within a certain amount of time, when in fact there were the other options that they weren't afraid of. And the final concern was the idea of empowering kids through community interactions to address some of the problems that they have, with their own kinds of understanding of how these problems exist. I think that'll be an ongoing. But that was about it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Next is SEL committee. We had actually a great meeting where Paulette outlined many of the programs for the upcoming year. We don't have dates for everything, but I'm just going to give you highlights. Some of our beloved programs are returning, like Nurtured Heart. We'll have SEL days. Of course, schools are continuing with the Character Strong program. We have a leadership corp at CHS. They're also talking about various support groups in the different schools. We've got our mental health camps. We also have our support from Comprehensive Mental Health coming back, and also Rutgers. And we, one of the main things that we talked about, or two main things we talked about. One was looking at the climate survey in the coming year to see how we might be able to amend it to really capture some of the SEL programming and outcomes that we're looking for. So that will be an ongoing working item. And the other program that's coming up that we're very excited about is Jordan Toma, who has the book I'm Just a Kid with an IEP, and he's going to come to speak at our schools. So we're excited for that in the coming year. Did you want to add?
No, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
I saw you push a button.
No, I was just turning it off.
Oh,
I
okay.
think you covered all of it.
Yeah. So, so that was our SEL committee. So then, policy and governance.
Awesome. So the policy committee met on Monday, July 8th, and we've been busy at work. Tonight we have one policy and regulation up for first reading, 2 policies for second reading, and 1 policy and 2 regulations up for second reading abolishment. So can I just have a motion and a second to move policy and regulation 2200 curriculum content for first reading?
Second.
Awesome.
Just to clarify, we're not moving both those policies that are on there?
The other policy was not amended, so we're not. All right, great. So policy and regulation 2200 curriculum content had several revisions. This policy and regulation relates to the Board of Education's oversight of the school district's curriculum. They ensure that the curriculum is consistent with our district's educational goals and the state's student learning standards. This policy and regulation were last revised by our board in November 2022, and the New Jersey Department of Education made revisions to the policy and regulation in June 2024 that are reflected in the marked up documents. So if you take a look at the policy, we just made a few minor revisions. Notably, the list referencing specific New Jersey student learning standards has been removed. Because these standards are continuously changing, removing this list ensures that we as a district do not become non-compliant if the standards do change. Additionally, references to New Jersey core curriculum content standards have been revised to New Jersey student learning standards to align with the state's new terminology. And on page 1, we have checked the option that reads "and among the schools of this district," which just reflects how our district is organized. For the regulation, we again made a few minor revisions. If you take a look at the document, we removed the list of protected categories and replaced it with the expanded list as defined in the relevant state statute. In paragraph 2, page 1, we have made clear that the superintendent is charged with developing a procedure to address and eliminate any possible bias in the curriculum on the basis of the protected categories defined in the state statute. We also eliminated the specific criteria and procedures that must be used to address possible bias in the curriculum because this is addressed elsewhere in our policies and as required by the state's comprehensive equity plan requirements. So are there any questions relating to policy and regulation 2200? All right, great. Moving on, we have two. You vote on the first reading?
Are you talking about the second one or no?
I have to still introduce the second. Okay, so we have 2 policies up for second reading and one.
Yeah, you got to vote. You got to vote on the first batch.
Oh, you vote. Okay, got it.
Second reading.
Yeah.
There you go. So, is it roll call or just?
No, all in favor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
All right, so moving on, we have 2 policies up for second reading and 1 policy and 2 regulations up for second reading abolishment.
That's good. So we need a new motion
Yep,
for that?
I was ready. I was there. I was prepped. So can I have a motion and a second to move policy 2421, career and technical education, and policy 5841, secret societies, for second reading, and to move policy and regulation 5538, random drug testing, and regulation 2421, vocational technical education, for second reading abolishment?
So moved.
Second.
Great. So for second reading, the policy committee received no additional edits to these policies after first reading last month. So I'll just go through them fairly quickly. Policy 2421 ensures that the school district makes a program of career and technical education available to its students in accordance with state code. We made minor revisions to the policy. Specifically, the term vocational has been replaced with career throughout. And we also clarified the purpose of offering career and technical education, which is to provide students with opportunities to explore and prepare for different career options. We also indicated the mechanism through which we offer career and technical education, and we selected the third listed option in the policy because Hopewell offers both county vocational school options and local career and technical education programs. And lastly, we indicated that our career and technical education programs are open to students in grades 9 through 12. The other policy up for second reading was policy 5841, which prohibits secret societies. For those who are curious, secret societies are defined as student organizations not approved by the principal or designee and are not open to all students. So we made one minor revision to this policy, which just replaced the list of protected categories with the expanded list as defined by state code. Okay. Moving on to the policies and regulation up for second reading abolishment. Firstly, we are recommending to abolish Regulation 2421, Vocational Technical Education, per guidance from Strauss-Esme, as the details in this regulation are just no longer required. That's as simple as it gets. But now for the more important one that has been of particular interest of our community and this board as of late, which is Policy and Regulation 5538, random drug testing. This policy and regulation was discussed in depth in our previous policy committee meetings and last month's full board meeting, but I just want to provide a brief overview here because this has been something that has been an ongoing discussion for several months, and it's important for all of us as we vote on it to have the full scope of why we're making this change. So in the past school year, all high school students who participated in athletics or co-curricular activities, obtained parking permits for on-campus parking, or elected to participate with parental consent, were subject to random drug testing, which was carried out by a third-party vendor. The policy committee decided to revisit this policy due to significant societal changes and our internal data showing the program's ineffectiveness. So the first thing to note here is that since this policy was first implemented, I believe back in 2018, we have seen the legalization of recreational marijuana in New Jersey, and with that came a real corresponding change in attitudes towards marijuana use. Consequently, there has been a significant increase in positive test results in our high school. But I will say it's important to note all positive tests except one indicated marijuana or THC use. And what we've seen from these results is that these students are often testing positive at very low thresholds, likely indicating that the use is infrequent and recreational in nature, rather than a more severe substance use disorder. So what does this mean operationally for our district? As a result of the uptick in positive cases, our district's time and resources, particularly in counseling, are being diverted from students with more severe substance use disorders to students testing positive for recreational marijuana use in order to comply with the language of this regulation. Additionally, I think it's just important to note, we talk a lot about finances on this board. Eliminating this program would save our district and taxpayers close to $15,000 annually by no longer having to pay for third-party vendor services. Secondly, while the program was initially intended to identify and support students in need, our district has actually found more success through other methods, such as self-referrals, teacher and friend referrals, and analysis of attendance. In fact, our student assistance counselor shared with us that the vast majority of students who were identified through the program that have a significant need for substance use disorder services had already been identified by the school. Lastly, the evidence around random drug testing in schools has developed over recent years. And since our district's implementation of the policy, the research strongly demonstrates that these programs do not have meaningful impacts in deterring substance use. In fact, that the American Academy of Pediatrics has opposed random drug testing in K-12 schools since 2015 due to lack of evidence. And I just want to conclude on a personal note. Since I joined the board back in January, I have been vocal about my opposition to this policy. And just to be blunt, dozens of my own conversations with current students, parents, and alumni have revealed that this program feels coercive and counterproductive because it forces students to opt in if they want to engage in sports, park on campus, or participate in clubs, all of which are activities that we can inherently infer are deterring drug use. So we want to make sure that we as a district are adopting policies that are effective, student-centered, and above all else, responsive to the perspectives of our community. So given this evidence, along with the input from the district's Drug and Alcohol Committee and community stakeholders, we firmly recommend abolishing this policy and regulation. All right, roll call.
Mr. Kapadia.
Yes.
Dr. Resnick.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Slotman.
Yes.
Dr. Wilson. Dr. Genovese.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, and the next item is calendars, and I might suggest, due to the missing board members, that committee liaisons reach out to schedule meetings next week.
So, any new business? Okay. Then we will enter into our second public comment. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up in a future meeting so that the matter is researched by district administration. Members of the public who intend to participate in public comment, we ask that you sign in prior to speaking. This will assist us in our record keeping. Public comment is now open. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Okay. So we are going to enter into executive session. I would like a motion to enter into executive session to discuss harassment, intimidation, and bullying matters. Hold on, wait.
Hold on.
I'm like, wait. Something.
An HIB hearing.
Okay. Oh, an HIB hearing. And the STEAM teachers. Will action be taken?
No action will be taken.
No action will be taken. Can I have a motion?
Still
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Board members need 5 minutes. Everybody need 5 minutes.
Yes, please.